The most heartbreaking moment in Jay and Mavis Leno's marriage did not happen under bright lights or during a dramatic public event. It happened quietly at home on an ordinary day when Mavis looked at Jay and did not seem to recognize him. There was no warning, no music, no audience, just confusion in her eyes and a silence that changed everything. Jay later described how devastating it was to realize that the woman he loved was slipping away in pieces, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. For Mavis, it was like waking up each day and learning again that her mother had passed away, reliving that grief over and over for years. For Jay, it meant learning how to grieve while still standing beside her. In that moment, love stopped being about shared memories and became about presence, patience, and unwavering commitment. A marriage built long before fame. Jay and Mavis Leno's relationship began long before late-night television, awards, or massive car collections entered the picture. In the 1970s, Jay was a struggling comedian working nights at the Comedy Store, trying to survive on jokes and determination. Mavis was there one evening, quiet, intelligent, and confident without needing attention. Jay noticed her kindness before anything else. They connected easily, not through glamour, but through conversation and shared values. When they married in 1980, they chose a life that was unusually simple for Hollywood. There were no scandals, no constant red carpets, no hunger for attention. They preferred quiet nights, meaningful discussions, and mutual respect. Jay often joked that marrying Mavis was the smartest decision he ever made, a statement he repeated for decades without knowing how deeply true it would eventually become. Choosing each other without conditions. From the beginning, Jay and Mavis built their marriage on honesty rather than expectation. Mavis was clear that she did not want children, and Jay accepted her choice without pressure or resentment. Their life together was shaped by shared understanding, not compromise through conflict. They supported causes they believed in, especially civil rights and humanitarian work, and spent time together in ways that felt meaningful rather than performative. Jay listened when Mavis spoke, admired her strength, and often said she was his moral compass. Their home was calm, grounded, and private. They didn't need spectacle to feel fulfilled. Over time, their bond deepened through routine, trust, and genuine affection. They became each other's safe place in a loud world. What they built was not flashy or dramatic, but it was durable, strong enough to withstand the unimaginable challenges that would later arrive. When small changes became impossible to ignore, the earliest signs of Mavis's illness were subtle enough to excuse at first. She misplaced things, repeated questions, forgot familiar details. Jay noticed immediately, but like many spouses, he hoped it was nothing serious. As time passed, the lapses became more frequent and more troubling. Conversations lost continuity. Recognition faded in flashes. Eventually, doctors confirmed the diagnosis Jay feared most: major neurocognitive disorder, a severe form of dementia. The news landed heavily. Jay understood what it meant, not just medically, but emotionally. He knew the road ahead would involve loss layered upon loss, long before any final goodbye. Still, he never considered leaving or distancing himself. Instead, he quietly prepared himself to become her protector, her advocate, and eventually her full-time caregiver, even though nothing in his public life had prepared him for that role. Stepping forward. When love demanded more, in early 2024, Jay filed for conservatorship, a decision that outsiders often misunderstood. To him, it was not about control, but protection. Mavis had always been sharp, independent, and fiercely intelligent. Now she struggled with decisions, memory, and safety. Jay stepped in because someone had to. He took responsibility for her care, her finances, and her well-being, ensuring she remained safe and treated with dignity. He didn't speak about it dramatically. He didn't frame himself as a hero. He simply said this was what marriage meant. Love, in his eyes, was not a feeling that faded when things became difficult. It was an action, repeated daily, no matter how painful or exhausting. This was not the life he imagined in their younger years, but it was the one he committed to without hesitation. Becoming a caregiver one day at a time. Jay's daily life transformed completely as Mavis's condition progressed. He woke early to prepare her meals, gently guided her through basic routines, and stayed close as her balance weakened. When she needed help bathing, he helped her without embarrassment or frustration, treating her with the same respect he always had. When she grew tired, he carried her, joking softly to keep her calm. These were not moments meant for public admiration. They were private acts of devotion, repeated quietly day after day. Jay never referred to the work as a burden. He said it was simply what love required now. Even when Mavis became frightened or confused, asking where she was or who he was, Jay focused on soothing her rather than expressing his own pain. His strength lived in restraint, patience, and consistency. Holding on to connection. When memory fades, to preserve their bond, Jay tried everything he could think of. He used photo cards from their early marriage, hoping familiarity might spark recognition. He played music she once loved, dressed in clothes she used to compliment, and spoke to her with the same warmth he always had. He read her news articles because she had once been politically passionate, and watched old movies repeatedly because repetition brought her comfort. Even when she didn't respond, he continued talking to her, believing that connection could exist beyond words. He held her hand during long afternoons, offering reassurance through touch rather than explanation. Friends noticed how carefully he watched her, always alert, always protective. Hollywood Jay disappeared entirely. What remained was a husband determined to keep love alive, even when memory no longer could. Strength without seeking applause. What makes Jay Leno's devotion remarkable is not just what he does, but how quietly he does it. He never turned his situation into headlines or sought sympathy. He spoke about it only when asked, and even then without self-pity. While the public knew him as a comedian and television icon, the man at home revealed a deeper strength rooted in responsibility and compassion. Dementia slowly takes memories, identity, and independence, but Jay refused to let it take dignity. He spoke to Mavis as if she understood every word, kissed her forehead even when she didn't recognize him, and laughed gently when laughter seemed possible. He believed love could still be felt, even if it could no longer be fully returned. That belief carried him through daily heartbreak without bitterness, a different kind of heroism. Watching someone you love disappear into confusion is one of life's cruelest experiences. Jay lives with that reality every day, yet within that sadness exists something profoundly moving. He remains the anchor when Mavis drifts, the steady presence when her world becomes frightening. He has shown that heroism does not always live on stages or in awards. Sometimes it exists in kitchens, bedrooms, and quiet living rooms. It is found in cooking dinner for someone who no longer remembers the recipe, holding them at night so they feel safe, and staying long after recognition fades. Jay's strength is gentle, not loud. It is rooted in promises kept when they are hardest to honor. In choosing to stay fully present, he has redefined what devotion truly means, the greatest legacy of Jay Leno. Jay Leno's career will always be remembered for its success, longevity, and influence. But his greatest achievement is not measured in ratings, awards, or rare cars. It is found in how he has loved Mavis through the most painful chapter of their lives. He has shown that marriage is not about convenience or shared joy alone, but about standing firm when joy disappears. Even as he mourns the life they once imagined, he creates new moments of connection through drives, videos, laughter, and simple routines. Jay Leno's legacy is ultimately one of character. He reminds the world that love is not proven in easy years, but in the ones that demand everything, and in those quiet, unseen moments, he has shown exactly who he is.